And here we are, my friends, on the show that never ends. Well, it ends at 5 this morning, of course, but each and every week we're joined on a Friday, saving the show and enhancing the station greatly by Van Connor, tip-top film critic, of course, co-presenter of that Rather Fine. He'll tell us more about it in a bit. More of a Rather Fine podcast off-screen. And here he is now with his 1, 2, 3 Freeview film recommendations for the weekend. We could all be indoors, trying to wrap up warm and get the central heating on because it's going to be bitterly cold again, Van. What have you got to warm our hearts? So we all like hot cockles. What have you got to warm our hearts for the first recommendation? Good morning, Van.
Good morning, Mr. Ross. So first of all, I'm going to take you tonight to Film 4 at 9 o'clock for Mean Girls, not the musical adaptation, which is now in cinemas. And don't be fooled, by the way, that is a musical, despite what the marketing will have you believe. It's a full-blown, it's an adaptation of the stage musical adaptation of the movie, which itself is an adaptation of the 2002 novel, I think it's Queen Bees and Wannabes, written for the screen here by Tina Fey, who also stars as the teacher in the movie. And this features, from 2004, Lindsay Lohan as Katie, who has been raised in Africa, but then comes to the US and has to settle into the even wilder kingdom of an American high school in 2004, specifically the predatory band of friends known as the Plastics, who rule over the school's social cliques. It kind of made a star of Rachel McAdams. I'm sure you must have seen this, Paul.
Well, having 4 daughters now all in their 20s, I've seen this film many, many times. It is a cute film.
Then thousands of times, yeah.
It's a great film, and I don't think I've ever actually sat through it all the way through. I've seen all of it, but in different bits and chunks. And the thing I really liked about it is the kind of degree of wit and, I don't know what, sass, I suppose you say. You don't always get in these high school things. It's not as cliched as it might appear from the description you've given us. It could be a fairly standard high school type, the Heathers or whatever taking over, the cliquey ones get their comeuppance. It's a bit more than that, I think, this film.
I think so. A lot of that comes from the sort of the sharpness that Tina Fey brings to the writing, which really sets it apart very quickly from a lot of its sort of contemporary sort of rival movies. Like, for instance, none of the Amanda Bynes movies of that era, for instance, quite lived up to the sharpness of Mean Girls. So you can see this tonight on Film 4 at 9 p.m. I've got a clip for you, and this is Lindsay Lohan attempting to sort of socially integrate with the Plastics for the first time, led by absolutely star-making turn from Rachel McAdams.
Claws out, here we go.
So you've actually never been to a real school before? Shut up. Shut up! I didn't say anything. Homeschooled. That's really interesting.
Thanks.
You're like really pretty.
Thank you.
So you agree?
What?
You think you're really pretty?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my god, I love your bracelet. Where did you get it?
Oh, my mom made it for me.
It's adorable.
So fetch.
What is fetch?
Oh, it's like slang from England.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
Oh my god, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
I think you can. They do in that film. You're not mentioned, though. I think it's a very funny film as well, isn't it? And again, it all works for that kind of film. It's enhanced, no doubt. It is enhanced by the presence of Lindsay Lohan. My first film is very different indeed. From 2008, it won Catherine Bigelow the Best Director Oscar, the first woman to have won that particular honorarium. Also got Best Film and Best Original Screenplay. I think it helped make a star of Jeremy Renner, who then went down the Marvel cinematic superhero way, which is fine, but I must confess, I had higher hopes for him because he's got that wonderful beaten-up look of an authentic 40s movie, so like John Garfield, or even someone like James Cagney. He's been great in other films. In this, he's fantastic as somebody who's involved in basically a bomb disposal unit in the Iraq War, in the early days of the Second Iraq War. The supporting cast, in fact, it's more of a kaleidoscopic cast. They've got Guy Pearce, Ralph Fiennes is in it brilliantly, David Morse is in it. Jeremy Renner is the star of the show, though, and it's about dealing with the kind of pressure and anxieties and terror of diffusing these devices, living a day-to-day life over there as well, and then coming back to a day-to-day life in the States. I think this is still a remarkable film. I mean, there's an element in which, people at the time were saying, is it too American-centred? Well, of course it is. It's about an American unit. But it does touch upon some of the controversies surrounding that conflict, and it's got some heartbreaking moments in it, I think. What did you make of this one? At the time, I forgive the horrible pun, I was going to say I was blown away by it. That's the wrong thing to say. I was really moved by it. Seeing it again since, I'm actually as keen on it, but for different reasons almost. I think the performances I overlooked at the time because of the sheer tension of the narrative drive of this. Yeah,
I think it's one of the great alternative war movies of our time. It also made a bit of a star of Anthony Mackie as well. He's one of the unit, and he follows Renner actually into the Marvelverse as well, because they're both currently active in the Marvel scene. But yeah, I thought this was a really great pulse-pounding movie, but not necessarily from big sort of set-piece tension, but from just character-driven, intimate tension. I really loved this.
11:30 tonight, BBC One. It's The Hurt Locker. If you've never seen it, do yourself a favour, set record. You will not be disappointed.
Welcome to Camp Victory.
Oh, Camp Victory. I thought this was Camp Liberty.
Oh, no, they changed that about a week ago. Victory sound better.
All right. So what do you got?
The car has been parked illegally. The suspension is sagging. There's definitely something heavy in the trunk.
Interesting.
What's he doing?
I'm gonna die. I wanna die comfortable.
How many bombs have you disarmed?
873.
873. You're a wild man, you know that?
Oh, that's so bad. Our first time working together. What do you think?
I think us working together means I talk to you and you talk to me.
Are you going on a date, Sanborn?
My team leader is inspiring. He's gonna get me killed. What's the best way to go about disarming one of these things?
The way you don't die, sir. That was good.
I would say define good. I suppose they say not getting blown apart, but it's a very tense film indeed as well on that one. Now, you've gone for a rather different kind of film for your second recommendation. Tell us more about it, please.
Yeah, so Saturday night, BBC One, 11:05. And what can you say about this one? Because I think the minute this was announced as actually happening, I think we all had an expectation, and the film did kind of deliver on it. So Blade Runner 2049, released in 2017 by Denis Villeneuve, taking over from Ridley Scott on the first one. You get Denis Villeneuve, currently, you know, most known for Dune, I think, nowadays in the mainstream. And this returns us to the world set out by Ridley Scott's 1981 original. Takes place 30 years later. And much like the first one, what we get here is a young detective, here played by Ryan Gosling, who stumbles his way into a case that threatens to expose a secret that can change the entire fabric of the way that human beings interact with artificial life forms or artificial intelligence in humanoid form. But in order to expose that secret, he has to turn to, the only person he can turn to is Harrison Ford's Deckard from the first movie, thus bringing him back into the fray. So you can see this at 11:05 on Saturday night on BBC One. It is a banger, visually incredible. Gosling perfectly suits the world. I think this is actually a punchier, pacier movie than the first one. I thought the same of Top Gun Maverick, to be fair. I don't think classics necessarily can't be outdone by their own sequels, but in both those cases, I think it's true. This, I just think, is a really great movie, and also a shockingly good turn from Dave Bautista in the beginning.
I probably see the original Blade Runner. Normally the studio version, because I like the narration, the kind of 1940s private eye type narration over the top, which I don't think Ridley Scott signed off on initially. I probably see it at least once a year, maybe twice a year. Would you recommend people see the original before they see this one, or can you dive into it as far as you're concerned? I can't really answer that because I've never not had the original very much in my mind.
I actually didn't revisit the original before watching. I'd seen it, I think, 2 or 3 years prior, but I'd sort of forgotten the intricate details of it. And I still managed to wander in. I basically knew the concept was the only thing, but the film lays itself out quite well, I think.
And the final shots, I think, when it's not really giving much away just visually, but when Ryan Gosling's lying on those steps and it was like snow's falling, absolutely astonishing beauty to this film.
Yeah, I mean, incredible cinematography all around. This was Roger Deakins, I believe. So obviously it was always going to look amazing. The use of colour and light in particular. I mean, in Blade Runner obviously
and
starts
the orange
at
Las Vegas. When they go
on.
to Vegas, it's got that weird orange hue. It's fantastic to look at this film, and a great narrative driving some very chilling moments as well. So remind us when we can see this one. It's a Saturday recommendation, man.
Yeah, Saturday night, BBC One, 11:05. So I've got a clip for you. This is Ryan Gosling's detective asking about the nature of artificial dreams.
Are they all constructed, or do you ever use ones that are real?
It's illegal to use real memories, officer.
How can you tell the difference? Can you tell if something really happened?
They all think it's about more detail. But that's not how memory works. We recall with our feelings. Anything real should be a mess.
It is a very haunting film. And right, I'd completely forgotten about Dave Bautista in the beginning, but he's an amazing, amazing character. I won't say any more in that case. I'd give a spoiler away. Now, my second recommendation is, if I'm being absolutely honest, in the very wee small hours of Sunday morning. It's my Saturday pick, 1 a.m. on Sunday morning. So it's still, if you're up late-ish, it's still a Saturday night movie to watch. And if you've not seen this one, I absolutely love this film. It's called The Driver. It's from, I think, about 1977, 78. I think I can't quite remember when I saw it. I managed to catch this purely coincidentally as a supporting feature on another film. Blew me away at the time. Stars Ryan O'Neal, who's kind of limitations. He said he died late last year. His limitation as an actor work in the favour of this film because he's very emotionless, kind of almost not quite there. He could be a Blade Runner, could be an android, in fact, in this film. No character gets a proper name in this film. They're all called things like The Driver, T's nicknames, The Cop, or whatever. And it was directed by Walter Hill, who just made a film called Hard Times, also known as Street Fighter, James Bronson, James Cobra. He then went on to make The Warriors. This was a film that Tarantino still rates, other people rate, other people have borrowed from. I still think it's got a coldness and a precision, and almost the lack of warmth works in its favour. The way a film like American Gigolo's lack of warmth, I think, marks that as a remarkable cinematic experience. Very simply, there is a trouble with the game, getaway driver, never been caught, involved in huge robberies. Bruce Dern, who's brilliant anyway, is the copper who becomes fixated, like Captain Ahab on the white whale in Moby Dick, wants to catch this guy. So he more than bends the law. He kind of sets up a job. They try and lure the driver into it. So he basically says to the other guys involved, who are absolute hideous psychopaths and ne'er-do-wells, if you get me this guy, all the charges against you are dropped. So everyone's got horrible, twisted motives for it. Isabella Gianni's in it. It didn't do well at the box office in the States. We loved it over here, I think. They loved it in, I think Egypt it did very well, and Japan, I seem to remember at the time. And Walter Hill said, had he not then made The Warriors, he probably would have been in trouble in Hollywood. Isabella Gianni certainly says it kind of set her career back. It's Ryan O'Neal's best role, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, even though it was directed by Norman Mailer, in Norman Mailer's version of his odd film, odd book, Tough Guys Don't Dance. If you've never seen this, great car chases, some amazing sequences. It's the kind of film, obviously a real nod towards Steve McQueen's driving in films like The Getaway. Had quite a troubled life getting made. I'm glad it did get made, and you can catch this on Legend Extra, 1 o'clock Sunday morning, called The Driver. It's also, I mean, obviously, if you make a film called Drive with Ryan Gosling, you're going to have seen this film. I think the influence of this film almost can't be overstated. I think an awful lot of that, the newer directors that we like now. For example, Edgar Wright, he starts as a huge influence on Baby Driver. You can't not, I think, when you see this film.
Definitely.
And as far as the driving sequences go, there's one scene in this, folks, which, even if you record it and it's not your cup of tea, whiz through until you see the scene when the gang are trying to see whether they ask Ryan O'Neal, but how good are you really? And he demonstrates on it by effectively demolishing the car they're in an underground car park. Some of the best stunt driving I think I've ever seen. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's Sunday morning, but it's my Saturday recommendation on Legend Extra. It's The Driver.
3 loners playing a ruthless game none of them could afford to lose. In The Driver. Ryan O'Neal is the driver.
My line of work is kind of hard to come by.
His reputation, the best wheelman in the city.
Did you ever get caught on one of your jobs?
Hasn't happened yet.
Bruce Dern is the detective.
I'm very good at what I do.
His reputation, the toughest cop in the city.
You saw the man who was driving the car, yet you didn't identify him. You got a reason?
I just don't like you.
You get out of my town, because you go out on one more job, and I'm gonna nail you.
You might be getting too big.
2 men driven by their need to prove they were the best.
How are you gonna get downstairs?
I really like chasing you.
Sounds like you got a problem.
And of course it becomes almost a Hemingway-esque clash between the two. It's a bit like that film version, The Killers, of the Hemingway short story. So it's a great film, this one. So I can't recommend this one highly enough. One of my favourite films, always in my top 10. And my next film is only about an hour and a bit later. It's on at 2:15 a.m. Sunday morning on BBC Two. It's This Is Spinal Tap. For a lot of fans, if you've seen it, that's all I need to say, is that, but basically it's a fantastic mockumentary, or documentary, if you will, about a fictitious band who've got elements of so many other bands. Bands love this apparently because I think they see themselves or their rivals in it. It's an English band, brilliantly played by mainly American actors, and you've also got the director, Rob Reiner, Carl Reiner's son, featuring in it as well, as the kind of man who asks kind of questions like, well, you hear one there, why make your amplifiers go to 11? Why not just make 10 louder? that kind of bringing common sense to this strange world of sort of metal, sort of prog rock, sort of rock and roll. I mean, I think this is one of the great comedy films of all time, Van, no two ways about it.
Oh, no, absolutely. This is an absolutely seminal work in the genre. You just pointed out, like, that scene, the This Goes to 11 scene, is just a masterpiece of both sharp writing and epic delivery. The dumbfounded response in These Go to 11 that is one of the all-time just great moments. Also, we are finally getting a sequel to this now.
Yes,
it got like randomly announced recently. No one saw that coming, I think.
The band, of course, then were sort of formed. They played at the Albert Hall. I couldn't get tickets for it, but I don't know if I'd want to see them live, given that I've always got them at their absolute peak, or is it nadir, in This Is Spinal Tap, which is on 2:15 and the wee small hours of Sunday morning on BBC Two. Set the record for it, folks. It will stun you without a shadow of a doubt. And there's a chunk of the track. Doesn't mention the dressing room in the puppets. Doesn't mention the A&R man from the West Coast, who is one of the funniest caricatures I've seen. It does mention, though, amplifiers that go to 11. Here we go.
This is the loudest, rock and roll, most explosive band in heavy metal history. This is Spinal Tap.
There's such a fine line between stupid and clever.
The funniest movie ever made about rock and roll.
He choked on vomit. Well, they can't prove whose vomit it was.
The monumental classic.
There was a Stone Age monument on the stage that was in danger of being crushed by a dwarf.
The makeup of your audience seems to be young boys.
Oh, it's a sexual thing, really.
We've got, armadillos in our trousers. I mean, it's really quite frightening.
No, don't have
I was just pointing at it.
Well, don't point. I'm sure I'd feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation.
The cult phenomenon.
The numbers all go to 11.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
This is Spinal Tap.
I can't wait to see that again, even though I've got it on VHS or DVD and probably already recorded and downloaded somewhere else. And what's your final recommendation, Van?
So I've gone for a modern classic, I think. This is a 2006 comedy, The Devil Wears Prada, which is on Channel 4 on Sunday afternoon. You know I love the perfect Sunday afternoon slot. And 4:10 is kind of the perfect one for this. So this stars Anne Hathaway as the young sort of recent college graduate who gets her first job as the assistant to the sort of bullying editor, we shall say. Bullying would probably be the polite way of saying, editor of a high-end fashion magazine, not so thinly disguised a version of Anna Wintour and Vogue, but she's Miranda Priestley here, and she's played by Meryl Streep in a performance and a role that actually earned her an Oscar nomination for this. The actual book of the same name that came out, I think, in 2003, that the film got greenlit based on the proposal for the book, rather than the actual book itself. But the book was apparently written by a former assistant of Anna Wintour, who initially took against the movie, but actually wound up really loving it. And all the other fashion designers who wanted to contribute to the movie couldn't for fear of, angering her effectively. But they all donated costumes, and as a result, this winds up being the most expensively costumed movie ever made. And it's actually a bit of a banger, and it's got Stanley Tucci chewing out every scene that he's in, which is more than enough, I think, for any movie to truly rock. So you must have seen this one. How many times have you seen this? This is on every now and again. You've got to catch it. I saw it at
a screening. I saw it at the cinema, and it's a great film. A little bit soft towards the end on they try and redeem the Anna Wintour character a bit, which is understandable in the movie, but it is incredibly funny, stylish, and at times butter-clenchingly embarrassing as well.
Yeah, and every woman alive hates Adrian Grenier in this movie, it seems, as well, because his character is an absolute douchebag. But let's say, it's all about Stanley Tucci. I've got a clip for you. This is, also this made a star out of Emily Blunt as well. So the clip does feature Emily Blunt, and her sparring and reacting to Anne Hathaway's first meeting with Meryl Streep.
No, she called me in there and she asked me about Pier 59, and there was something about Simone, Frankie, someone else, and she needs skirts from Calvin Klein, and there was something about a pony.
Did she say which skirts?
No.
Did she say what kind?
No,
Colour?
I tried to ask her.
You never ask Miranda anything, right? I I will deal with all of this, and you will go to Calvin Klein.
Me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have some prior commitment? Some hideous skirt convention you have to go to?
Oh dear, ouch. Now tell us about off-screen. Are you off-screening this week after the show?
We are, in fact, off-screen, and you can catch Adam Ball and I on podcast platforms from 8 a.m. With this week's off-screen show, in which we get to talk about one of my very favourite movies of recent months, The Holdovers, which is in cinemas from today. If you Paul, you'd absolutely love that one.
What's not
It's
to
a
love?
proper 1970s feel-good, like teacher-student drama. Dramedy. Really great. It could seriously win Oscars.
Fantastic stuff there from our mate Van Connor, of course, with me, Paul Ross on talkSPORT and talkRADIO, where we're live till 5. And that, for the moment, is a wrap. Now, where did I put that remote control?